So do you ever find that the emotion of anger creates problems for you in any of your relationships? Well, today we've got some help for you in learning how to manage specifically the emotion of anger in your relationship. So, as you know, the videos on our YouTube channel are all about principles. And principles are laws that operate and exist in the world in which we live. When we understand what those laws or principles are, and we follow those, we're going to get the outcomes, or more likely to get the outcomes in our life that we want. So one of the things that we need to understand about emotion is what emotion is and where does it come from. So emotion is energy. So that means emotions aren't good or bad. They just are. It's energy that we get to choose what we do with. The next question then is, where do emotions come from? So think about in your relationships, whether that's with your spouse or your children, it could just be with friends or coworkers. Oftentimes it seems like the people that we're in relationships do things that cause us to feel an emotion associated with their behavior. What it looks like is that we have an event, and another name for an event would be a trigger or an antecedent. And so these events, these things, they happen, and then it seems like that causes an emotion on our part. So when, I'm going to just use the example of my spouse. So when my wife, Tony, does something that I don't like, or that goes against something that in the way that I think it should be, oftentimes it seems like when she does this behavior, it causes me to feel a certain emotion. But think about that for a minute. What this would say then is the equation for an emotion would be the antecedent or the event equals or causes the emotion. Now, if that was true, then this event, this occurrence, whatever this trigger is, would cause the same emotion in every person, right? But that isn't true. If you look at your own life, and how many times have you been in a situation with somebody else, you both experience the same event, and one of you finds it funny, the other may find it irritating or annoying, or even something that makes them angry. So this equation here is an incorrect equation. The true equation is we have an event or a trigger or an antecedent, and then we have a thought about the antecedent or the event, and then that thought is what equals our emotion. The problem is, in life we get conditioned to do the things that we do. So from a young age, we have things that happen to us in our life. We have thoughts about those things, and then we respond to it. And if we get the outcomes that we want. Okay, so I need to back up and just share one other thing with you, just so that you understand this a little bit better. And that is, everything in life we do for a reason, or we wouldn't do it. And the reason that we do things is for the outcomes that it gives us. And so when we have events, situations, circumstances that happen to us in our life, then we have a thought about that event or situation. Those thoughts repeated over time create beliefs, and then these beliefs drive our behavior, and our behavior gives us our outcomes. So when we're young and when we are just beginning and in life, everything that happens, we have to think about it, and sometimes we think about it, because the other part is, just in a simple sense, our brain has the conscious part and the subconscious part of our brain. The subconscious is the part we're not really aware of, and yet it's that part of our brain that drives most of our behaviors. That's what keeps us alive. That's what allows our lungs to function, our heart to function. And as we learn new behaviors, then it moves into the subconscious. So everything that we do on a daily basis, from brushing our teeth, getting out of bed in the morning, getting dressed, eating our food, walking, all of those things are taken care of in the subconscious part of our brain. Once we learned it with the conscious part, it moved into the subconscious. So just as we learn behaviors and how to respond to things in life, we also learn how to respond to things emotionally. And when we respond in ways that give us the outcomes that we want, then we repeat that behavior. And the more often that we repeat it, the quicker then it moves into the subconscious part of our brain. So that's why it seems like we can be triggered or in a circumstance or a situation, and immediately we feel the emotion. And that's because we've been in those situations before, and we've learned that when we think about it in a certain way that creates an emotion that then influences our behavior, when we get the outcome that we want, we repeat that behavior over and over again. So it becomes automatic, or this is another way of looking at the subconscious, is just saying that's our autopilot. So we don't have to consciously think about it. So that can be a good thing or a bad thing. When the conditioned behaviors or learned behaviors are working for us, then that's a good thing, because it allows our conscious brain to be focused on other things. But when we get conditioned to do things and then maybe the situation changes, or maybe the behavior worked for us for a period of time, but now it's no longer working, then when we're on autopilot, it's really hard to change that behavior, because 90% of the time we're in the subconscious part of our brain, which means that only about 10% of the time are we even consciously aware of what we're doing or why we're doing it. So we're talking specifically about how to manage the emotion of anger in a relationship. So there's two parts. There's, if I'm the person that has the anger and it's creating problems in the relationship, how do I manage that? And the other would be, if I'm the person in a relationship with somebody who has an anger problem, how do I manage that? So let me take the second one first. There are three basic core principles that operate in this world in which we live. So the first one is accountability, which says that each one of us are accountable for our lives, and we can't give that away to anyone else, and nobody can take it for us or take it away from us. The second principle is the principle of choice, which says in any circumstance or situation, I have a choice about how I will respond. And then the third principle is control. And there are three things that we have control over. And those three things are our conscious thoughts, our emotions, and our behaviors. So if I'm in a relationship with somebody who has a problem with anger, and their anger is creating problems for me or problems in the relationship, if my goal is to change the other person and to have them maybe stop being angry, think about what we just talked about. How much control do I have over that other person? I have no control. I only have control over those three things: my conscious thoughts, my emotions, which come from my thoughts, and my behaviors. So I can't control my spouse. What I do have in my relationship with my spouse is influence. And so I can influence them, but not control them. If I try to control them, I'm more likely going to invite more of the behaviors that I don't want, because most of us don't like being controlled. We don't like other people telling us what to do, because when that is happening, we feel like we're being judged. We feel like who we are is not enough, and all of us want to be okay. So when somebody is telling us that we're wrong or that what we are doing is wrong, we want to resist that, and oftentimes we become defensive. So the best thing to do if you're in a relationship with another person and they have an anger problem is you want to look at what your responses are to their behavior. Are you doing things that reinforce the behavior, or are you doing things that would weaken the behavior? And we have other videos on our channel that explain more about that I would encourage you to seek out and look at, that will help you know how to set healthy boundaries to control yourself, which will influence others to make healthier choices in their life, which will help them to be happier and help your relationship to improve. Now let's say you're the person that is struggling with managing your anger. So the first thing that you need to realize is that if I'm angry, it's a choice that I'm making. So nobody can make me be angry. So then the question is, why would I choose to be angry? And if we go back to the board and look at this is why I would make that choice to be angry. It's because throughout my life, I've learned that when I'm angry, I behave in certain ways that tend to give me the outcome that I want. And you can think in your life, what are maybe some of the outcomes that you get when you use anger? Maybe you intimidate other people so they give you what you want, or they do what you want. Maybe they back off and leave you alone. Maybe that's a way that it gives you a sense of control over things outside of yourself. And in the short term, that anger may work, and you may be able to look back over your life and see many situations where when you've gotten angry, it has actually resulted in people doing what you wanted them to do. So it seems like the anger works. But long term, you have to look at, what does that do to my relationship? Do I have long-term sustainable relationships when I'm using anger to control other people? Or are those relationships more short-term and they end, and then I have to go on and create a new relationship? So I don't know for sure what the reason is that you would be using anger in your life, but there's a reason. And so if you understand that and then begin to pay attention and watch and see what happens in your life and in your relationships when you use anger, watch what your behaviors are, and then watch what the outcomes are. Now let's say that you identify what the outcome is from that behavior. Now you know what the goal of that behavior is. So now it gives you the information that you need to come back and change your behavior. So first of all, we'll go back to our thoughts or beliefs. You look at the event or the trigger that happened. What are your thoughts and beliefs about that event that lead to that emotion of anger, and see if those thoughts and beliefs are true or correct. If they're not, then we need to be willing to let those thoughts and beliefs go and replace them with thoughts and beliefs based on principle or truth. And then that will lead to a different behavior, which will lead to a different outcome in our life. So the solution to managing anger in a relationship is, first of all, to recognize the principles that govern the world in which we live, to recognize what I have control over and what I don't. So if I'm not the person with the problem of anger, I have to realize that I can't control the other person. I can only control me. So if I need to get out of that situation, well, I have control over me, and I can choose to leave that situation. The other thing that I can do is influence the person expressing the anger. And again, I can look at ways, and as I said, there are other videos that can help you with that. If I'm the person that is having a problem with anger, then I need to focus on me, and I need to figure out why I am choosing to feel angry, what is the goal or the outcome of that behavior, and find a different way of behaving to give me that same outcome without having to use anger, which may have been working for me at one time in my life, but is not working any longer. If you'll take these suggestions and begin to use these principles in your life, I can promise you that if you have a relationship that is struggling because of anger, that it can improve. So I know that if you'll apply these principles in your life, the result will be you will be happier and your relationships will be healthier and happier as well. Thanks for watching today. If you found the information helpful, and if you want to know more about who we are and what we do, subscribe to our channel and visit our website at Principle Based Living. You'll see it listed below. And if you're watching me on LinkedIn, be sure to follow me here as well.